Shesh Zechirot, and it's very good stuff. However, I didn't satisfy myself with that because I thought we should also look at it's Bereishit, Shabbos Bereishit. So let's look at those sources that are in the Zohar Bereishit and also the Malka, then to look at Eitz Chaim. I got a whole slew of wonderful things. Because most of the time people talk Tzimtzum. I know Tzimtzum, but they never saw Tzimtzum in the Eitz Chaim.
Yeah.
So I copied all these things out. I haven't made extra copies. So once we decide what we're going to do, hi. Over there is the machshir that belongs to Tom.
Oh, this?
Yeah. That's why I called last night.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get the Zohar. Please.
Sit here, so
I'll start with that. What do you say?
Yeah.
Zohar, let me see which shtickle. I also did a copy from Zohar Torah of the whole story of Hanachash Haya Arum. And it's all these are very inviting. So you got to tell me because I'm ready to go. Here's from the Mevo HaSharim talking about Tzimtzum. From the Eitz Chaim again. Beginning with the motivation for creation and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I always use it every year to start. The teaching of Rav Kook where he quotes Bereishit Rabbah about the bark of the tree at the onset of creation, the bark of the tree had the same taste as the fruit of the tree.
Yeah.
And then he goes off in something that's really very strange because he says, that the sin of nature, and he never fully explains what the heck the sin of nature was, but at least and tomorrow, because it's the fifth Shabbos, we're doing Mincha and Seudat Shlishit. So that particular mimer is really good because it's very
well, I don't have that. I didn't prepare that. I can deal with what I prepared.
Okay, deal with it.
So V'hanachash Haya Arum is interesting.
I like this.
Yeah? So what do you say? We're gonna do those?
Yeah.
All right. So who's going to do some Xeroxings for us?
I'll do it.
Go ahead. At this point we need a Sachakol of 3. Make it. Is Reb Nadia upstairs?
No, she's doing a soul memory session.
All right, then make 5 of these. Of these 2. We won't be able to finish.
It's back in the back here?
Yeah, the machine is already waiting for you.
Okay.
Just turn it on. So, the Bobova Hasidim have a nigun, which comes from the Maggid of Mezrich, which they sing to the words Shabbos Bereishit tanzen wir in einem, Shabbos Bereishit tanzen wir in einem, Shabbos Bereishit tanzen wir in einem, Shabbos Bereishit. Why doesn't it want to go? I know why. Because it's on hold. Shabbos Bereishit tanzen wir.
No, it's yours.
Tanzen wir in einem Shabbos Bereishit, tanzen wir in einem Shabbos Bereishit, tanzen wir in einem Shabbos Bereishit, tanzen wir in einem. So why don't you sing along? You'll never learn it otherwise. Shabbos Bereishit, tanzen wir in einem Shabbos Bereishit, tanzen wir in einem. 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 Can you see where it fell? Yes. Shabbos Bereishit, tanzen wir in einem. All right. Die, 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 di, da, di, da, da, da. Hi, di, 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 da, di, da, da, da. Hi, di, 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 da, di, da, da, da. Di, da, di, da, da, da. Di, da, di, da, da. Di, da, di, da, da, da. Di, da, di, da, da, da. Di, da, 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 da. Di, da, 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 da. Rabbi Yair, there's a big red chumash on the table there, on the side table next to my chair. Would you please bring it?
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Which one to go
Did I make enough?
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you.
I don't know if anybody has seen it, but I got a copy of it. JPS just published a modified translation of Shmot
Okay.
taken from the Mikraot Gedolot.
Uh-huh.
And they didn't say if it's a project of theirs to do the Chumash, but it's really nice.
You did the same thing?
Well, I'd love to see that.
I'll bring it next week.
You bought it, yeah?
Yeah.
Good, I'd love to see that.
Okay.
So I'm beginning with chapter 3 in the Chumash, just to read through that thing that you get the sense of what's going on here again from the Chumash before we go to the Zohar. Ready? So the pasuk before, it was Saint Jerome, I think, who was in charge of making chapter and verse. Before the Masoretes got to it, and sometimes he did good, and sometimes he didn't do so good. So it says just before the last pasuk, last couple of psukim in chapter Bet say, Al kein Yazov ish et aviv et imo v'dabak be'ishto v'hayu lebasar echad. So that's a wonderful thing, and the question is, why should the woman not come to the man? Because Ha'isha Nikneit and the whole thing in the Middle East was going the other way. So how come that you say that he should davak be'ishto? So the answer is that there was a marriage kind in Mari and in Nuzi, in the old Babylonian thing, that was called a Rebu marriage. A Rebu marriage is where the husband enters into the household of the wife and the father-in-law. And Yaakov Avinu is such an Rebu marriage.
What
You
is it
see?
called again? A rabel?
A Rebu.
A
It
rabel.
comes from the same word that's involved in Eruv, and it has to do with to enter. That's why Mariv is the sun is entering back into her house. When you see how early these things are, that you have Kadmos and Europa. So Kadmos is east, Kedem, and Europa is from Mariv, Europa. Got that? The Eruv going back into there. So that's an Erebu marriage, and that's how it begins. So it's taken for granted that in the early clans, the man is a wild card, and he's trying to enter, to see where he can enter. And that's so clear when you see, for instance, wilder animals, how this is, that a young buck is going to try and see if he can snare a few females to make his harem with, but at first he will be joining the herd there on the outside, as it were, because there's always the big super duper guy with all the big racks and the antlers. Then it says, so they get married, okay? V'davak v'ishto. And what happens? Vayu shnei marumim ha'adam v'ishto v'lo yitposhashu. They're both naked, they're not ashamed. Interesting. So the Targum says, "Velo mit kalmin." We are not there yet.
Okay.
Velo mit kalmin. The lo yitposhashu says they didn't have klima. Okay. Lo amtinu bi'korehon, says the Targum Yonason. And Targum Yerushalmi says, Lo haviyadin mahi bahata. They didn't know what shame was. Okay? So he's got that. V'hanachash hayaha arum mikol chayat asadeh. Before he said that the two of them were arumim. And now he's saying that the nachash was arum. And this has always been a good model for me to point out that Hebrew begins with a biliteral thing.
Wow.
Because if you look, arumim, I mean, from a, what do you call, Gattungs, the German categories, that you're trying to use the same kind of words and so on. So these two are homonyms,
Right.
but they mean different things. So the word arumim comes from erum, which is erva, or, get that?
Yeah.
Ayin resh is the
Root.
basic for that. Whereas v'hanachash haya arum, the mem belongs to it, to the shorish, because it's ramai, leramot, to fool somebody. So they translate as subtil, says King James for that. So, and it was more arum from all the chayot hasadeh asher asa Hashem Elokim, vayomer, and it is this anachash, el ha'isha af ki amar Elohim, lo tochlu mikol eitz hagan, and doesn't say mipri eitz hagan, and that's where they come to the thing that the tam of eitz and pri was shavim. Vatoma ha'isha el hanachash mipri eitz hagan nochel. We can. But she says, mipri eitz hagan. ומפרי העץ אשר בתוך הגן אמר אלוהים לא תאכלו ממנו ולא תיגעו בו פן תמותון. ולא תיגעו בו, רש"י, הוסיפה על הציווי לפיכך בא לידי גירעון. It says you shouldn't add, you shouldn't take, and since she added the thing because, so then the Midrash says the Nachash pushed her hand against the tree and she didn't die, so he said, see, you didn't die. And she didn't have the courage to say, but God didn't really say that. He just said not to eat. So you get a sense already of pride in having tried to be pious, being the thing that trips you. Vayomer hanacha shel ha'isha lo motamutun. You will not die dying. Interesting. Well, he could have said lo tamutun, lo motamutun, which is, of course, a thing for the Chachamim. Now, to say that you won't die in this world, you're not going to die in the other world. Ashrecha v'tov lach, ashrecha b'olam hazeh v'tov lach b'olam haba. They always come up with this kefal halashon. But from the more modern way, what you think that you will surely die, that emphatic thing that you will die dying, I tell you, you won't. Why? Ki yodea Elohim, and it's interesting, it doesn't say ha-Elohim, ki vayom acholcham nimenu, v'nifkechu enechem, v'yitem ke-Elohim, yodei tov v'ra. And like God, so you will be knowers of good and evil. And I would have liked it if it would have said, v'yitem ke-Elohim, yodei tov, v'yodei ra. You know? When you hear Yodei Tov V'Ra, from now on you'll know it all mixed up. You'll never know Tov alone. Every time there's going to be some evil in some Tov and some Tov and some Ra. Vatere ha'isha ki tov ha'es lemachal. How did she know that? And that says not the pri ha'es, but the tree itself. V'chitava hi le'enayim. And this is so wonderful that she didn't know what the taste of that one was because she never tasted it. Have you ever seen some South American fruits? Strange fruits. Some of them taste good and smell bad. You know? So before you take a bite, you don't even know what they are. But they look good. Have you seen star fruit, you know? So they look so interesting, so good, you know? So it says here, Kitava hila enayim. It isn't a tava for the chech, it's not a tava for the tongue or for the palate, it's a tava for the eyes. V'nechmat ha'ez lahaskil. And the tree seems nechmad. Muhammad, you know, you get all that chamad, chem dalot achmod, you know, covet and all that stuff. That is very good. It promises something that you'll be able to be smart. Vatikach mipirio, and she takes the fruit and off the tree. Vatitin gam leisha ima vayochal. Vatipa kachna ene shnehem vayedu ki erumim heim. Do you see there's a dagesh in erumim to show that it has both the plural and the enclitic mem, like chinam, rekam, erum, okay? And but yitperu alei te'ena. It's interesting. How did they know to sow? Yeah. So Rashi says this interesting thing. They knew that they were naked. He says, but even for this you don't have to have open eyes. Even a blind person knows that he is naked. So what does it mean that they knew they were naked? It says one mitzvah they had, not to eat from that tree, and venit artalu. And they became divested from it. They became naked from that, okay? Alei te'ena. And why is it alei te'ena? So he says it was a fig that they ate. It wasn't an apple, okay? Therefore they took, what do they call it? The dog's hair?
Oh, the hair of the dog that bit them?
Yeah, right? And they made themselves hagorot. וישמעו את כל השם אלוקים מתהלך בגן לרוח היום, ויתחבא האדם ואשתו מפני השם אלוקים בתוך עץ הגן. ויקרא השם אלוקים אל האדם ויאמר לה אייכה, ויאמר את קולך שמעתי בגן וירא כערום אנוכי ואכבה. And of course, מי יגיד לך כערום אתה? מן העץ אשר ציוויתיך לבלתי יכולים לאכלת? ויאמר האדם, האישה אשר נתת עמדי היא נתנה לי מן העץ ואוכל. ויאמר השם אלוקים לאישה, מה זאת עשית? ותאמר אישה, הנחש השעיני ואוכל. ויאמר השם אלוקים לנחש, כי עשית זאת, ארור אתה מכל הבהמה ומכל חיית השדה, על גחונך תלך ועפר תאכל כל ימי חייך. So Rebbunim raises the question, how is it a curse to say that there's always going to be some afar around for the snake to eat? So the snake would never have dagot parnasa. So why is that a curse? And he says it's a curse. If you never experience lack, then you never turn to God for your food. Hakefirim sha'agu laterev levakish me'el ochlam. The young lions, cry out to God, give me food. And kulam elechi yisaberu v'ata noten lahem et ochlam bito poter et yadecha. And the snake will never get to that. That's the curse. Eva ashit beinech beinacha uvein ha'isha uvein zaracha uvein zara hu yeshufcha rosh ve'ata teshufana ekev. That's a heavy thing. He will step on your head, and you are going to bite him on his heel. And biting on the heel goes, the Achilles heel goes way, 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 way to all kinds of other mythic stories about vulnerability, that the vulnerability is there. It'll be very good that even your Akef will no longer be vulnerable. Okay? El ha'isha harba arbe etzvonech והירונך בעצב תל ליבנים ואל אישך תשוקתך והוא ימשול בך. You could almost say you're going to have a lot of depression, postpartum, all this kind of geschäft. Will a man come for me? Will there not? Nobody called me. It's Saturday night and I'm home. All these it's one, and then you'll also have a hard time with the pregnancy, and with the birthing, and despite all that, knowing that what you're gonna get, how hard birthing is gonna be, you won't be able to withstand it because ishech tshukasech v'hu yimshol bach. So. One Rebbe once said to somebody who felt himself pussy whipped, he said to him, the trouble with you is that your tshuka is greater than hers.
Tshuka?
Yeah. Your desire for her is great because the one who has the desire is going to be dominated. See that? Velishech tshukatech v'hu yimshel bach, because you have more. And that certainly fits into a situation of polygamy. In a polygamous situation, there's always like, why is he not with me? Why is he not with me? Why is he not with me? Ula Adam finally comes to, it says, Ki shama'ata lekol ishtecha, ותאכל מן העץ אשר ציוויתיך לאמור לא תאכל ממנו, therefore ארורה האדמה בעבורך, בעיצבון תאכלנו כל ימי חיי, בעיצבון. And the Targum says ba'amal, with exertion. Vanilla nails, again, nileti, tired, exerted. בזה אטפך תוך הלחם עד שופך לאדמה, כי ממנו לוקחת, כי עפרת ולעפר תשוב. So, after all this stuff, you would have said that he should have turned to the woman and called her, you paskodyak, you troublemaker, and so on and so forth. But instead, Vayikra Adam Shem Ishto Chava, Ki hi hayta em kol chai, Vayas Elokim la'adam ol ishto kotnot or ve'el beisham. He made them pelts, skins of animals, coats, and he dressed them in it. Rashi, Yesh divrei agada omrim, Chalakim ketziporim hayu medubakim al oran. That they had, before that, they had scales. ויש אומרים דבר הבא מן האור, כגון צמח, הארנבת שהוא רך וחם, ועשה להם כותנות ממנו, and he made them shirts from that. The interesting thing about the nails, you know, and Havdalah and all that kind of stuff, but also the reptilian ancestry. Okay?
All of these
shows
teachings that we came from the ocean.
Yeah, came from that. This is the. So now let's go and take a look at this Zohar. You see it on page 36 on the bottom part, V'hanachash haya arum. Let me read it from the Aramaic. You can trace me from the Hebrew if you want, but I'm going to read from the Aramaic, okay? I want you to hear that language. והנחש היה ערום מכל חיית השדה. רבי יצחק אמר, די יצר הרע. The snake is the יצר הרע. רבי יהודה אמר, נחש ממש. And that's what you're going to get, Chachomim always saying, Sukkos, yeah? It was Anani HaKovet. No, it was Sukkos mamish. Atu lekamed Reb Shimon. Amalon, vadai, kulachad. You think it's two different things? It's really the same, said Reb Shimon. Why? V'Samael have itchazeh al nachash. Samael, that angel. And so interesting, what does it mean? You know, the poison of God, or Suma, blind of God. And he appeared like the snake. V'tzulme the nachash da'i Satan. And the shape of the nachash, this is a Satan. V'kulachad, and it's all the same. Taninu, so we learned. Bahir shata nachat samal min shamaya. That hour Samal came down from heaven. Rakiv al nachash da. He rode on that snake. V'tzulme have chamoren barbarian v'arkon minei. And when they saw people were seeing him, creatures were seeing him, they ran away from him. And he came to the woman with words and caused the death for the world. Vadai, sure. B'chochma Isa Samuel levatin al alma. It was wisdom that he did to bring the curse to the world. Woe for that tree. No, v'chibel ilne kadmoy, and he destroyed, ruined that original tree. That the Rebbeinu Shalom created in the world.
Samael ruined it, right?
Huh?
Samael ruined the tree.
Yeah.
You think?
Umila da havetali al Samuel ad asa ilna acher kadisha diya Yaakov. This kind of thing about the tree was still in the hands, under the control of Samael, until the tree of Jacob, another tree came, the tree of Jacob. V'natal minei birchon de lo yisborach Samael le'ela ve'asu letato. Ve'esav letato. Right. He says what Yaakov was able to do, there were some blessings that are intended for Esav. And these blessings were also the blessings for Samael. And in revenge to all that, Yaakov took that back when he got the brocha from Yitzchak, okay? And why is that? What's so special about Yaakov Avinu? V'shufrei de Yaakov, shufrei de Adam Rishonu. The beauty of Yaakov was the same beauty of Adam Harishon. Now, let's stop for a moment. Lehrleben, way on top, on the top shelf, toward the back, you should find P. Manly Hall's book on Secret Teachings of the Ages. Can you see that? Sort of a tall book with a black binding. No, it should be on this
side?
one. Yeah. Don't see it there?
No. No.
It's an English book next to all the Hebrew.
Maybe it's hidden behind.
No, if you don't see it, that's all right.
Is it an old book?
Huh?
No.
It's not a Hebrew book. It's sort of. If you don't see it, then I don't know who has it right now, because it's my second copy that's now disappeared.
Which book is it?
Secret Teachings of the Ages by P. Manly Hall. All right, in there's a picture. And the picture shows like a king sitting like this. See how my arms are? And my head, imagine I have a crown on. And imagine around here, there's a mirror. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And so the mirror would be depicting my head down, and where those elbows are, it would depict elbows. So if you think of Keter with a crown, Chochma and Bina over here, reflected in the mirror as Chesed, Gvura, and where the crown was is Tiferet, okay? So when he's saying Adam Kadma'a, you know, Adam Arishan, so that goes for Keter. That's the first, the first thought of humanity. You can also say the first thought that comes up to create the anthropic principle. So there is something about Yaakov, and so when Yaakov can fix that thing that had, usually you fix things on a higher level, and Yaakov can fix it on a lower level. Begin the Nachashi of Malach HaMoves, Goran Moisel Chol Alma. And because the Nachash is the Yetzer Hara, he's also the Malach HaMoves, and he's also the accuser. 3 tasks he does. He first seduces someone, then accuses someone, and then punishes someone. These are the 3 tasks he does. And the taint of the snake remained with them until Mamet Har Sinai. Itmar keven de chatu v'zapko be'ilne de sharyebe moisoletato. Since they sinned, they became connected to the tree of death. U'maksi v'yishmu et kol Hashem Elokim methalech b'toch hagan. Mehalech ein eksiv kan ela mithalech. Treat mithalech, break it up, and you get made halach. A human being is called a walker. V'natata lacha mehalchim ben ha'omdim ha'ele. You know that famous teaching about that Reb Zalman puts into the second part of the Tanya. He says a malach stands at, always stands. Srafim omdim imalo. But on the other hand, if you are a walker, you up and down. You're never the same. You change. So the halach, the walker. There's a wonderful book in Yiddish called Der Geyer. If you could understand Yiddish, I would have. If you really understood Yiddish well, I would have such great joy reading you chapters upon chapters of that book in that language. The guy wrote a whole novel in verse. His pen name was Menachem Bereishit, and he was really Menachem Goldberg. And the book when he needs a rhyme to describe what, like children play, Kinder suchen, in the zusammen, you know, then he uses that kind of a rhyme. And some other times he uses open verse and so on. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful book. So he calls that book Der Geyer for the same reason that as the Mahalech is the one who walks. So Methalech. Toch hazi, ad lo chata Adam, have solig vekoim bechochmo den hire ilo. As long as he hadn't sinned, he was able to go up and stand up in wisdom that was shining on him from above. Velo habe mitparish me'ilna dachaya, and he was not separated from the tree of life. Keven de asket yuvusa lemindal nachtal tata, but since there rose up in him the desire to know what's going on below, it mashech abatrayu atit parish me'ilna dachaya. So he was drawn downwards until he was separated from the tree of life. V'yodara, now he knew evil v'shavak tov, and he left behind the good. V'al ketiv ki lo elcha v'tzreisha ata lo yegucha ra. With you there is no ra dwelling. Mandit masher batara leit le dira im ilna dachaya. Anyone who follows is drawn after the evil. He cannot claim that he has access to the tree of life. Ad lo chatu havashamin kolamil ela, until they, up to the time that they sinned. Before they sinned, they were able to hear the voices from above. V'avayada chochmate ilo, and they knew the great wisdom. V'kaima b'kiyume de zero ilo v'lo dachali, and they were standing in the light, the shining, the effulgence from above, and they were not afraid. But once they sinned, they couldn't even stand the voices that came from below to them. Stop for a moment. Consideration. That sense of the descent. I wish I had here a copy of Hans Jonas' book on the descent, the Gnostic story. And there is that story, and someday I'm going to type it out. I have it. I copied it out in the original Syriac, where it was. And I need to normalize it into Hebrew letters so that you could read it. It begins like this, as an innocent. Kad Habatalia, when I was a child, Beve Malka, in the house of the king, and how good everything was, and then the king sent me down to get the pearl beyond any price, and it was guarded by the dragon. And so you had to go down and get that pearl. But he was warned not to eat anything from the food that's there below, because that would drag him down into the world. Now you have again Persephone and all that, you know. Don't eat any food in the Hades, in the netherworld. So all these kinds of things keep coming on about that descent. Our story tells it as a family descent. And here again, the interesting thing is that the book of Bereishit is all family problems. You know, from the sibling rivalry with Cain and Hevel to the sibling rivalry with Joseph and the brothers, all the time family stuff is going on, And it's not being drawn beautifully. It's told in a very, how would I say, not such a nice way. So take a look how much trouble we every time have to take Yaakov Avinu and whitewash him. You know, to say it was really good, you know, Ishtam Yosef Aholim and so on and so forth.
Is there anything about the amount of energy that the say the Yetzer Hara, in this case the Nachash, expends, as opposed to the rather passive existence of goodness? It doesn't extend itself. It doesn't pull like the.
Say that again. I didn't want to miss it. Yes.
You know, I'm struck by the fact that from this point on, in the midrashic material, there is an energy that flows from, say, the Yetzer Hara. All right, it's pulling you all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, sin croucheth at the door.
Yeah.
He gives that image of it will grab you.
Yeah.
But on the opposite, the goodness seems to be passive.
You could say it the same thing about the right in America and the progressive people. You might say the same kind of thing. The progressives are lemishkis and the other ones are very active and so on.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, I'm
That's why Rabbi Levi Yitzchak was saying, Rebbeinu Shalom, you took the Yetzer Hara and put it in front of our eyes with all the temptations. And the Olam Haba and the reward you put into the Reishis Chochmah. You should have done it the other way around, you know. Put the Yesod into the Reishis Chochmah and show us. Right?
Right, yeah. I mean, is there a temptation to do good?
Reward, the reward.
Well,
What?
but, I mean, that's so primitive, but okay, even with that, the reward is later. The reward for following the Yetzer Hara is immediate. At least that's the promise. All right?
Well, that's such. Look, if you were to ask from a very bourgeois point of view, he really blew it, you know?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Take a look how you have to make babies, you know, how life continues. Couldn't have been done like two people looking each other into the eyes and doing holy things, and from there babies should come, and they should come out of the head, rather than between, as it says, inter urus et feces, you know? Between urine and the feces, that's where the babies come out.
Right.
So and that's one thing. The other thing, but on the other hand, when you take the Yetzer Hara and you lock him up, you take Yeshua ben Levi takes the sword of the Malach HaMoles, and the eggs are not being laid, nobody gets married, nothing has happened. So you need to have a thing that even if there's a generation of people who are not pious, that's where Vel Isher Chu Koser, you know, despite the fact that birthing is painful, there's still a longing to have babies.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I mean, there are two women here, and they can disagree with me on this, but having been at the birth of 4 children, it's not, and it was, all 4 were natural childbirth. Nadia describes it both as an, tremendous amount of pain at times, but she also says that it was the most orgasmic experience each time. That's what it was, an orgasm, a continuous orgasm mixed with the pain.
Well, that's the point, because what happens in that kind of natural birth, a lot of psychoprophylaxis beforehand, so that you know this is going to happen, here's where you're going to breathe, here's where you're going to push, and you know how to interact with that. But when you figure that people in a very primitive situation, I remember seeing a movie by McLean, something about an Irishman, was one of those epic movies, where this nice woman, she's now 40 years old or something like this, and she gets married and everybody's happy with the wedding, but she doesn't, he sort of rapes her at the wedding night. So you go and figure, what that's how you start, and you have the babies also with pain, and there is no preparation for it, and so on. Yeah, you know, if a person never knew what birth was about, and started to feel I'm platzen, you know, I'm gonna die, it's ripping me apart, if she wouldn't know what's happening. The fact that we at least know that the baby is gonna come from that is something. But how many women died in childbirth at one point because they didn't know, and the people who worked with them didn't know, and how much infection there came, and so on and so forth. Things were difficult. So into that story comes this heavy thing. Yes.
So, in answer to the question, it's a good question. I like it because the idea that evil is very active and very immediate, and it's offering you these immediate rewards, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas good doesn't seem to be that.
Yeah.
And I get the idea that good is really a room. There's a wiliness to it. I was just reading this prayer with my family last night that I got offline at aish.com. And I don't remember the whole thing, but it goes, you know, I asked for wisdom, and God gave me challenges. You know, I asked for love, and God gave me people who were in need. You know, so God didn't give me anything I wanted, but God gave me everything I needed.
Yeah.
Right.
So the good is very much there, but it's more wily than the evil. The evil, you know, is simple, right there. Look, there's the money. They're not looking. Pick it up, and there's your reward. The good says, but you know what? That's the challenge. Don't pick it up, and you're going to get something really good out of this. You know.
That's why they say arum beyira. You know that in that you have to be clever and following
In the awe.
story. The Sanzer calls a guy in and says, "What would you do if you were you know the story? If you were to find a wallet with money on the street, what would you do?" And he would say, "Of course, I'd look to find out, give it back to him." He says, "You're a fool."
Yeah.
Then he calls another guy in and says, "What would you do?" He says, "I would pocket it. It'll see nobody looks. I pocket it." He says, "You're wicked." Then he asks a third guy, "What would you do?" He says, "I don't know. Would be a hard battle." He says, "You're a good man," you know, because he isn't fooling himself. Let's see what comes up. Vayomer el ha'isha. Okay, got it?
Chanele, do you want the second one?
Maybe there's an extra copy over here. What happened was the copier ran out of paper and I didn't realize it, so it didn't.
Oh.
Do you have an extra one of
Yeah, you can give it this one. That's fine.
Yeah, this is probably
Great, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. I didn't realize it till I came in and started handing them all out. Then I went back and I didn't know that you didn't have it.
Okay, I have to go to the book. Vayomer el ha'isha. Rabbi Yossi Amar, be'af potach, be'af matil be'alma. The other day I was listening to the radio. Sometimes it happens you push the wrong button and out comes a church evangelist. And this one was saying something about the word however. And he said like this, that when the spies came and brought back the report, it was such a good report. Take a look, this is the fruit, this is this is the that. However,
The Ephes.
Ephes, right?
Yeah.
And here the word af comes in the same way. Af ki omer Elokim, you know? So he said, Rabbi Yossi says, he begins with the af of, and then he brings about af anger. Amalala itza be'ilne da baruch kutchabricha alma vaday achle minei ve'yisem kelakim yodetovara. Do you know how he built the world, how he made the world? He ate of that fruit too. The ha ihu hochi have Elohim. because you're gonna be godly the same way too. Shmei Eitz Hadas Tovera, its name is the Eitz Hadas of good and evil. Valderech, Valda, Ve'yisem Kelakim Yodet Tovera, Omer Rabbi Yehuda lo nema hoche. The Ilo Omer, Be'il Nedo, Boru Kushe Bericha Alma, Yois Habe. If he had said, with this tree God created the world, would have been okay, you know. It is true. Ki habe kegazen biyad hachotzev bo. And you have to remember that gazen biyad hachotzev means what? Instrumentality.
It's a
You
good
know?
thing. It's a good thing.
Huh?
It's a good thing. It's a
Yeah,
tool.
but also that's where they get to poel koach hapoel benifal, you know, that he uses the garzen to do what he needs to do. Avaloma ela me'il nedo ochal kodshe berichu kedeim boralnu hol umens sani lechavre. This is interesting. One shoemaker hates the other shoemaker. That he says here, Kol Uman, every artisan, Sani Lechavre, hates his competition, if you will. So he said, Achlo mineva aton tia baron alma. Eat and you will also create worlds. Valdo ki yoda Elohim ki biyom acholchem imenu. Ubegin de iu yoda do afkid lechu alei de lo tochlem imenu. Because just the same way as one artisan hates the other one, so God would want you to create worlds to make worlds. So he has forbidden it to you, because otherwise you would be able to do the same he did. Thomas Merton wrote a book called The New Man. In those days I was with him in correspondence about things. And in there he talked about Prometheus and Christ. Prometheus is trying to do a favor, almost like the Nachash here. He's saying, the gods don't want to give you fire, I'll sneak it out from Elysium for you, so that you will have fire. Something the gods are withholding from you, okay? And he's saying, so we had wonderful correspondence about this thing, that he never asked, Prometheus never turned to ask the gods, could we have fire? You know, he assumed that they will keep it only for themselves, and there is no good way in which he can get it except by those other means. And in this case here, if Adam and Chava would have said, Rebbeinu Shalom, we have to know, if you want us to do our work in the world, give us the wisdom. They could have gotten it, like Shlomo HaMelech, who in his dream asked God for wisdom. He could have gotten it. They wouldn't have had to steal it, sneak it, and go hide afterwards. One of the things that I like to point out is that the understanding that you have of shame and fear creates more trouble than the act itself. You know, when they're saying it's the cover-up that's worse than the crime, yeah? So if he would have said, God says, Ayeko, and he said, come and find me, you know, and they would have continued to play. And imagine, what's his name, Stephen Gaskin was driving along with a school bus, you know, where he had all the people in the school bus. They were having a caravan before they made it to the farm in Tennessee. So on the road, they got stopped by a highway patrolman. who says, "Do you have any drugs on you?" He says, "Of course I have." And I smiled. Oh, he said, "Oh, you," and let him go.
Right. Right. Right.
You know, I call this overjoining.
Right.
Overjoining. Once I was in Chicago doing something in a what they call a traditional shul, which is Orthodox but mixed seating. Okay. So they had a bargain basement minyan for Mincha and Kabbalah Shabbos downstairs, while upstairs was going to be the service. Okay. So there I'm with my streimel, with my kapote, and so on and so forth. And one of the Yidol says, "How come that you are here?" I said, "I do it for money." So he says to me, "But you must have some other reason too." I said, "Yes, but if I would have said the other reason, you wouldn't have believed me about the other reason."
Right.
You know, because you could see that he came with that they couldn't imagine you do it for any other reason but for money. So I gave it to him. Now you have it, and it's like, you know. So Ayeko, I'm still chewing the apple. Right?
I mean, that whole scene. I mean, you got to stop it every so often, because you're absolutely right. The biggest failure of conspiracy is the cover-up. The cover-up is always revealed. It's always uncovered. The act itself, if it was just done without any attempt to cover up, could well go unnoticed.
Also with a certain kind of innocence.
Yeah, yeah.
You see, the excuse is an exculpation, but the innocence is, look, you made them look so good, those apples. You made that tree so gorgeous. You know, it was a set. It was a, you know,
Right.
you wanted me to bite from that. So what? Don't give me a hard time.
It's a shame
but-
wasn't you and not instead of Adam.
Huh?
It's a shame it wasn't you in the Garden of Eden instead of Adam.
I tell you, I would have freaked out too. So now he has the thing, he says, because each artisan hates the other, that's the reason why he doesn't want you to eat. And therefore he had said that you'll die. Begin the yoda do, afkid lo alai, de lo techle mine. Omer Reb Yitzchak. Bekula milule shikra. What? In everything that the snake said was a lie. Bishirut de Amar. Shikra have dechtiv, af ki Amar Elokim lo tochlu v'nei sagan v'lav hoche. It wasn't like this. First he says, didn't God say you shouldn't eat from any tree of the field? All right? Everything was permitted to him. What did that wicked one do? I touched the tree and I didn't die. You too touch it and you won't die. And this he had added of his own. Miyad vatereb ha'isha kitov ha'ez lamachal, etc. B'ma chamad, how did she see it? How illness salig rechin. That tree started to give out fragrance. As he says with Yaakov, Gereach hasod asher birch Hashem, I can't take the sugar. It's a tickle little substance. Begin the how reach to have a solik hamdalele mechal minei.
Water?
We'll see. I could imagine this in a cartoon in which you would see the tree, and all of a sudden you would see a shimmer coming out from the tree, like the reach is coming to her and enticing her. And it's so interesting. If you take a look at youthful exploration of sex, you know, how it is tentative, may I touch, may I, you know, and then there's the smell and the pheromones and the whole thing, and getting to taste it and to see it, and the looks and everything that else comes, and the hunger for that. So, Vatere ha'isha kitov ha'etz lemachal. Reb Shimon. Do you remember a movie Blue Lagoon or something like this?
Yes.
Like
Yeah, there's a big
from
tumult when it came out.
the 70s or something.
Yeah.
Which one? The Blue Lagoon.
It was about two kids were left on an island with this guy, and then he dies, and they grow up and they make up their own rituals, and they learn about each other. The first one was beautiful. The second one with the model wasn't that great, but the first one was great. The black and white one.
I don't remember the details about it. I just remember that it was
So beautiful.
it was innocent.
Yeah, it was so beautiful.
Yeah. Vatera ha'isha kitov ha'ez lemachal. Reb Shimon, doch hazi, דהו בני אנוש שלו מסתכלים ולא ידין ולא משגיחים ושעת לדבור קודש בריך לאדם ואיקר לי בעיקר אלו בור מן אליס דווקא בי begin die starker יחידוי בליבה יחידוי ובסדי דבי כוסה יחידוי דלא ישתנה ולא מסהפך לאלמן והאו קשור יחודה דלא בי בכולה בייס קשה והדו דחסי ואיס חיים בתוך הגן. In the beginning, he says, when the Rebbe Shalom created them, and he put them into their dignity, he sought them to cleave to him, in order that he should remain in oneness with one heart. And that kind of oneness is one that could have stayed forever and would have been pervasive in the world. Time out. You remember that joke about the guy who make me one with everything, right? He goes to the hot dog vendor and says, make me one with everything. Right. And that sense of make me one with everything comes because there are moments that people have experienced the ecstasy of being one with everything. Mm-hmm. Now, could you imagine if that were to be continuous? Mm-hmm. So that nothing would change. You would be you, I would be me, you know, and yet there wouldn't be a sense of separation between us. Mm-hmm. And that could have been a wonderful world to be in. Now, when I'm now thinking about Tchiyat HaMeitim in a way in which is believable, I mean to say that Gaia wakes up. You know, that everyone feels himself as part of the whole, as part of the whole. Mm-hmm. So that's Tchiyat HaMeitim in a sense, you know, because the sense of separation and separateness, you know, could you imagine if that oneness was pervasive, and now comes my time to die? It wouldn't be the same as if I'm encased in my ego, and my ego is going to be threatening me. You will not exist. You must do something. You mustn't die. You mustn't die. Mm-hmm. But what would be if I recognize, you know, just like the caterpillar is gonna. So what? So I'll become a butterfly. So when Rumi says, I was born a stone, I died as a stone. I was born a plant, I died as a plant. I was born as an animal, died as an animal. I was born as a human being, born, and I died as a human being. I was born as an angel, died as an angel. I was born as God. So, death, where is your sting? You are the one who has enabled me through all these kinds of things. That would be coming out of that yichud. So Reb Shimon says that here. But levatar satu me'ucha, later on when they left the way, the nehemanus, the way of faith, v'shavku ilon yechida ela mikol ilon, when they left that tree, which is the highest of all, v'atu lizdabke v'atar the mishtane u'mishapach megavna legavna, and they got they entered into a tree that keeps on changing from color to color, mitav lebish and mebish letav, from good to evil, from evil to good. V'nachtu me'ele letata, and they went from above to below, ve'itavku betata b'shinuyin sagin, and they were connected to things in places where there are many, many changes, shifts and changes. If I'm in oneness, then the shifts and the changes are still part of the oneness. But if I'm not in the oneness, when a shift happens, then I'm not in the one that was there before. So you get the sense of separation happening here. God made the human being, in Mishle he says it, God made the human being straight, and they sought many cheshbonos. And that's such a wonderful sentence. One of the definitions of interest is a fusion of motives. A fusion of motives. Why am I doing something? Can you ever say clearly that you're doing it for only one motive? You can. No, Gesundheit, you know. Then you're still hanging on to the Eitz HaChaim. But the rest of us have all kinds of additional motives. When I want to persuade someone, I start with one motive, and then with another motive, and another motive, and before long, I lay all the motives on the scale until the scale is ready to go down. And this is how their hearts change to that side. Zimnin letav, at times for good. V'zimnin lebish, at times for bad. V'zimnin lerachme, v'zimnin ledina. Have you got that page?
No.
Huh?
No.
No? Okay, so we stop. So I want to say, what you get here is clearly a medieval understanding of that story, in which you have good and evil arrayed against each other, and there's a great battle going on. What happens is that today we don't see it so much as these kinds of forces. It is so clear that when mother says, don't touch the cookie jar, that she is inviting that the kid is going to take a cookie.
Right.
The setup of Gan Eden is very, very clear. Now, if you take it in a primitive way, you would say, God got angry, got disappointed, and so on and so forth. But if you see it as a kind of script that had to be acted out in the youth of humanity, so that there should be a growth of consciousness through all that, it's a different story. Which leads me to the place of I think I mentioned that to you before, but I want to work on it a little bit more. About that controversy is going on about intelligent design. As long as you see Kegarzen Biyata Chotze, that God is outside of the universe and He is building it all like with Legos, and putting it so together and see how clever He is that it fitted and so on and so forth. So that's intelligent design imposed from outside. That's very much how fundamentalists think, because to them it is always heteronomy. In other words, how do I know such a thing? It's because the Bible tells me so, you know. It comes from the outside of me. I have no knowledge of it myself. If you go from autonomy, then you say, and this shows itself so beautifully. I was talking with Father Keating, and we now have a beautiful DVD of a dialogue that Rami Shapiro set up, called The Kiss of God, Davke, because we got into Shir HaShirim and Moshe Rabbeinu dying with Meis Beneshika and so on and so forth. And we got to the place, yes, that there are two sources of truth. One is the book of nature and one is the book of the Bible. Now, at this point, we're still with the Rambam and with Thomas Aquinas, okay? But then I was saying that there is also the third place, and that has to do with Torah Min HaShamayim, because our soul knows something. And that's an important thing, okay? So how does the soul know?
How does the soul not know?
Huh?
How does the soul not know?
Well, but that's good. That's a challenge. But if you ask, how does it know? It knows from the Yediat Atzmo. You know, it's like they say Ilu Yadatif Hayitif. You know, then you can say Hayitif Yadatif. I know it because I am it. And then you go to the most subjective, intransitive way. I know myself, that's how I know. You know, when somebody says, how do you know it is so?
I know.
Huh?
I know.
I know because I know myself, you know? And so it comes from that. And that's where Descartes takes off, in a way, when he says, I think, therefore I am, you know? But if he would have said differently, I'm aware, therefore I am, then it wouldn't have let him have a whole logical system from which he could derive things. Because it still, he would have had to stay with intuition and not with logic. You know, he takes the intuitive point and builds logic on top of that, instead of saying, this is intuition and the rest of it is also intuition. So, where does intuition come from? And I like the word intuition. It's the teaching that's happening on the inside. And so, Nishmat Adam Talamdeno Das, the soul of a person teaches him knowledge. And I would want to go and say that when Bergson and Ilan Vital and all these other people are talking about the knowledge and the awareness that is already, let's say in slime mold and those things, that they have organizing principles and they are coming together, and each holon has more awareness, and there's more in the sum than in its parts. Always more awareness. So if you say intelligent design from the transcendent side, it's much harder to say than to say that intelligent design is built into immanence. Okay? Now, if you say it's built into immanence, then you cannot lord it over other people and try to overcome the division between church and state and impose a religion, because intelligent design from the transcendent side says, and I know what this is, therefore I'm triumphant over you. But if you do it from immanent, then you would have to say, just the same way as this cell is aware, and this cell is aware, and all the awareness of the various cells. So then you would have to say, and this is what brings me all the time to say that the world religions are the inner organs, the vital organs, and they all have to collaborate together. So there is intelligent design, but you couldn't say the design isn't intelligent, because if you see how things are made, they work out very well.
From the place of immanence, Darwin is as right as a creationist.
That's right.
Right? From the transcendent point, see, that's a very strong argument from the transcendent point. Right?
Well, but precisely that's the when you go from the transcendent point, then you have God from the outside impressing things on the world as it is going on, and that is hard to prove. But if you start saying, "Lo ki eresh shemecha masa es batecha, yareich v'kochavim asher kanantam," there's the radical amazement, the astonishment that comes to people when they see I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, and that's wonderful. But that does not give you a cudgel over other people, and I think that's the important part of that. And so I want to write this out when I get around to it. Okay, have a good Shabbos, and a good beginning for Bereishit for all of us.
We're doing that.